Really excited to be sitting down today with Mr. Robert Mesa. He's one of the original 3 members of New Style Car Club. So it was yourself,
Andy Douglas, myself, and Hank Lopez. He was from Los Angeles. He moved up here.
Okay. So 3 of you started it.
Yeah.
So 1974 is when the club was officially started, I believe.
I would say, actually, we started messing with cars since the 9th grade when me and Andy met. But we didn't really officially start until 75. But 74, we were already doing the thing.
Okay.
That was our junior year. And high school, senior year is when we actually said, yeah, we're a club.
Okay. So before New Style came on the scene, what was cruising like in San Jose before that? So, like late 60s?
San Jose, you would rarely see a lowrider. Lowriders that came around were people from down south who came up to visit family, or somebody moved up here. But you rarely saw any lowrider, and nothing that you would call a show car of sort. There were mostly hot rods. Everybody cruised down First Street. And in fact, the first lowrider, when we first started lowriding, we first went over there, but it was kind of we were out of place, like the misfit kids out there. So that's when we came to the east side and started doing it down the east side. But they were mostly lowriders. A lot of them were jacked up, wide tires in the back, skinny ones in the front. The first lowriders that came in, they were lowered, but they had wide tires. The wide tires were still popular back then, 74, 75. There was no cars that I knew of a car club. But there was the San Jose Stepsides, where it's a truck club. They were around. I think Chicano's Pride was around back then. The old bombs and stuff were there. But we started right about 75, right after graduation, high school and stuff. We both had cars when we were juniors and stuff, but we officially started right after that.
Okay. Kind of break down the story of how New Style kind of started, right? Because you said there was a lot of traveling back and forth to LA. And
Right. Well, junior and senior year in high school, we used to sneak out of the house because they didn't let us drive down there, and we'd go down to LA, and because we saw a car one time come up here to San Jose, and he goes, "Wow!" We were blown away by what it looked like, and we asked him where he's from and everything, and he said he was from LA. He goes, "Go down there and check it out. You won't believe what you see." He goes, "And make sure you go to Whittier Boulevard." So we said, okay, we went. And we saw the cars, and we were taken back. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. I mean, they were everywhere, hundreds of cars everywhere. During the day, during the night, they were cruising the boulevard. And the boulevard, Whittier Boulevard, is a pretty long street. And it goes, almost 2 or 3 cities it crosses. And what we noticed that all the car clubs, with the best cars and stuff, they would have these little areas where they would park, and they would always use those spaces that they were like, that's their area. Nobody goes to those. And people who weren't in clubs would just cruise up and down, and sometimes go into the parking lots and drive by and see what's going on. So we saw that, and on the way home, we go, we gotta do that.
Yeah.
So when I went down there, I took my camera with me, and most people would take a camera, to just see the whole car, but I have that, I'm an engineer, so I have that instinct in me. So I was like documenting everything, taking pictures of steering wheels, tires, and people. When I show people when I came home, what are you doing that for? So we use that to come back and try to, re-engineer that or replicate that.
All the details, right?
Yeah. So we're people who build cars are very detail oriented. To the finest little paint job, stripe, or whatever. So I was doing that, and when I came back, me and Andy had to learn how to fix that, do that ourselves. We went to school together. We went to high school together, and we first met in auto shop in the 9th grade, and then the following year I went next door, which was metal shop. So Andy was still working on mechanical stuff, and I was learning how to weld and do all that stuff. And when we went on one of the trips to LA, we came back and we saw they had twisted grills, they were cutting bumpers and all kinds of things like that. So we came home, and he went over to me, he says, "Can you do this?" And he gave me a piece of chain, and we wrapped it around this wheel that we found that was in the metal pile at school, and welded it and made our own steering wheel out of it. And our teacher looked at us and said, "What are you doing?" Because I had a good rapport with my teacher there, and he would let me work after school. I'd go in there and make projects on my own. And he got interested. He was a very good teacher. He would, if he saw that you liked something, he would go out of his way to help you, reach that goal. I mean, it was great that he did that. He allowed us to bring our car over, and in the back parking lot, the shop was near a parking lot. It had a back door. We pulled the car up right there and start measuring things and building things. He would even lend a hand, weld it this way or do it this way. So we started building Andy's first car in the parking lot right there.
Wow.
It was a '63 Chevy. We built the grill for it. We built we built the steering wheels for it inside there, and at home, he did all the paint and body work at home. Because back then, there was no body shops that knew that kind of stuff. So we did it in garages, same way they do in LA. We used to go to their houses, and they were building them in their backyards and in their garages. So we did the same.
Yeah. So you're going back and forth to LA, kind of picking up things here and there. Yeah. So when did the name New Style come into the picture?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories, which I'm sure you have as well.
Yeah.
Everything from my cousin did it, or I know somebody who did it, and some even claim they did it. But I can tell you for that right now, nobody in New Style ever named the club New Style. Nobody in Northern California that I know of named it New Style. On one of our trips that we had went down to, we went to go buy some parts, because you can find the parts up here. We had to go buy like wheels and tires and stuff. We asked one of the guys that we were talking to, where do you get a plaques done? Who makes your plaques? So he gave us a name and an address, and we went down to the foundry where they made them. And we asked the guy, what does it take to get a club, together and stuff like that? And how do we get a plaque? And he goes, well, you can bring your ideas to me and I'll build them. He goes, you got a name? I go, no, we don't have a name for our club. And he goes, well, I got something for you. Let me show you. So he went into the back. In fact, here it is. It's the original plaque. And it was the mold that was made for every plaque up all through the 70s and 80s. That's the original plaque.
Wow.
And he goes, I got this plaque here. He goes, you want it? He goes, the guys who ordered it, they backed out of the order. And if you want it, I'll call them up and say, do you want to release it? And you can have it and take it home. And she said, yeah, we'll take it. We want 3 more. So he made us 3 more, and we brought it home. So whoever that was, one of the stories that I heard, the original people who ordered this, was a club that their members were arguing over, well, not arguing, we're discussing, what's the car club name going to be? And some of them wanted this, and some of them wanted one called Lifestyle, which Lifestyle is a big, huge car club.
Right.
So that's one of the stories. And you can't quote me on it, but that's what I heard, who it was.
Yeah.
So we got New Style, and it was named by somebody down there.
So you bring that up to San Jose. And so then when you first, what was the first car to have that plaque then, or first 3 cars, is it?
The first 3 cars, because we by then we already said we were going to start a club, and we went down there specifically to learn how to get one of these done.
Okay.
We didn't know any foundry people up here. There are foundries up here. In fact, later on, we used a local foundry. One of the guys in our club, in fact, worked at a foundry, so I gave him the plaque, and he went and ran off a whole mess of them.
Oh, nice.
So when we were down there, we got 3 plaques, and this is the original. I was given the original because I had to sign for everything, and so he goes, here, you can have the original, and the other guys got the copies. Everybody's argued, everybody's wanted this. They've offered me cars to get it.
Wow.
I go, nope, it's going with me when I go.
That's awesome, man. So you come up to San Jose, and then it's so Andy, yourself, and
Hank
are all flying the first plaques.
Well, we got here. Me and Andy got here late at night. So back then, we used to cruise at a place called Raza Park. It's over there by Hellier. And they were already cruising. They were picnicking over there, but there was no lowriders like the lowriders we know today.
Okay.
So we went over there. That was the first time we put our plaques up and drove in there with small tires and everything. And everybody would stare at us and wondering what's going on. And they said, look at that guy with tennis shoes on his car. All kinds of, you hear all kinds of jokes.
Never seen that.
They never seen it. So we went and we parked, and people just kept coming over looking at it. At the time, Andy had a 65 Chevy. And then Hank Lopez had a 32 Chevy, and I had a 72 Riviera. Andy's car was always working on his car, but he had the body itself was painted a candy tangerine.
Okay.
But the top, he was still working on it, and it was primer. And what was funny about that primer job, because everybody thought that was part of the paint job. A couple weeks later, I seen a bunch of cars getting primer tops, and they thought that was the style. But we were still working on the car. It was funny as heck. Andy's cars were always being built on. Most people who build cars, they rarely finish their cars. They're always working on somebody else's car. Mm-hmm. So, but when you do get it done, it's one of the best. Technicolor is one of the examples of that.
Yeah.
So from then on, we would drive around in the streets, and people would, follow us until we, first couple of times we got a little nervous, thought somebody wanted to start something. So we'd pull over and get out of the car and say, "What do you want?" And those guys are jumping up and down, yelling, "That is so cool!" They're all happy and everything. So they go, "Where are you guys from?" They thought we were from LA, and we told them, "No, we're here in San Jose." He goes, "You're going to start this club here?" And he goes, "I know people who have cars who would join you." So they started sending people our way. Mm-hmm. And then we got the idea of starting cruising, trying to make our own cruising area, because it was weird down First Street, because we were, like I said, it was mostly the white community that was out there.
Okay.
And they were a different style of car. Mm-hmm. And the lowriders were getting picked on a lot by the police up there. I mean, I got pulled over because they said my tires were too little, and for this or for that. One time I got pulled over. They said I was parked at St. James Park, and there's like a line in the road, and my tire was touching it, so I got a ticket. Stuff like that. Minor stuff. It goes on. It wasn't terrible, but it was just to be a nuisance.
Yeah, right.
So that's when we decided to come back this way. And we took the same kind of rules that they were using on Whittier Boulevard, where the car clubs would park, mm-hmm. and everybody else would cruise. So our first parking was the old Jack in the Box on Story Road. The Jack in the Box has now moved over a few hundred feet. Right. They built a new one. But that was our spot. Nobody ever touched it. I mean, every Saturday, every Friday when we wanted to go out, it was open when we got there and we parked. And people would come over, and that parking lot got too full. It was a small parking lot at the time. They didn't have the big mall there. Mm-hmm. So it got too full when we had to move across the street, because there was a big parking lot there. There was a Home Depot. There was an old store there that got turned into a disco, Disco East.
Okay. Yeah.
And became the hangout for most of the car clubs and stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was a very large parking lot. So everybody moved over to that area. We still kept our side, but most people went over there. And it got so big. I mean, cars every day. And it kind of got a little out of hand, where there were people just throwing their trash, beer bottles, whatever, on the parking lots. Mm-hmm. And they were getting a lot of complaints. We used to do a lot of community organization type things with San Jose Police. Right. In fact, a couple of guys in San Jose Police I went to school with, and one of them I was in the military with. He told me about what the police were planning on doing because of what's going on over there. He goes, "You better talk to your guys out there." So we arranged a meeting with the San Jose Police and asked them, what are their concerns, what are they hearing from the public, mm-hmm. and what can we do to help mitigate that. And he said the biggest problem they have is trash. You guys leave that parking lot with trash. So there was a Home Depot right there in the same parking lot. So all the club members decided to go and buy a garbage can, and they put their names on them, their whatever new style, whatever your car club, and put them all out there. And literally walked the parking lot and told people to use the garbage cans.
Oh, okay.
And they did.
Yeah, kept it clean then.
Yeah, he kept it clean. One of the guys in the club, his father, he owned one of those street sweeper type things, and he would clean that parking lot. And we gave him extra money to go make sure that it was clean for the next morning, so the landlords and the people who worked there wouldn't get mad.
Yeah. That's smart, man.
Yeah, so we kind of lucked out, because some of the people in the club we used their resources to try to help solve some of the problems that were going on.
So it sounds like then, although you tried to start taking parking lots and kind of set up car clubs in different parking lots, it ended up getting really mixed in together, right?
Right. I mean, the parking lots were meant for you could park your cars there. They were like miniature showrooms where you could go, you could get off and you go and walk around. But it got out of hand. There was way too many people, and the parking lots got so jammed. People were bumping into other cars, and it just, I even saw people run into other cars, they were high or whatever, and the crowd got. I mean, there was more people than San Jose people that were out there. There was a lot of people coming from all over, and that amount of people was just uncontrollable. Even the police said that's too many people to have in that kind of crowd, so they recommended turning it out. And they went to the city council, and they passed a law saying no cruising on that street.
Okay.
They didn't do that to First Street, but they did that to our street.
Yeah, interesting. So you bring cruising from First Street just because the environment wasn't right.
Right.
You take it to Story Road. It gets crazy out there, right? Just people from all over. Because you hear all these stories of people coming from all parts of California to come cruise. Because the cops really couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, right? there was no city ordinance or anything that that prevented us from doing that. Yeah. And when they started to get out of hand, then the city council started making new rules and saying you can't do this, you can't do that. But it was well taken care of in the beginning. I mean, the police respected that, and they said you guys stay out of trouble, don't break no laws, and you don't have no problem with this. It's when the problem started, then we had to deal with them.
Right. So you brought up Technicolor, and I think Technicolor was painted right around Story Road, right, like on Gay Avenue.
Yeah, it was painted there, but the body work and everything else, we did it around the corner from my house right here.
Okay.
But Bugs was a painter, and we did the metal flake, we did all the stuff in Manuel's garage. And then his uncle lives down on Gay Street, which is about a mile from here. And we put the car inside there, and Bugs came up to San Jose. He spent a week here painting the car. We had a blast, while he was there. We painted the car during the day and went out at night because he wanted to see what San Jose Lowrider is about. Bugs, he was the president of Spirit Car Club at the time.
So how'd you guys connect with him then?
We met him one of the trips that me and Andy were going down there.
Okay.
And we had asked people, who's one of your better painters out here? And a lot of people told us Bugs to meet him. And so we hunted him down, and we sparked up a conversation, told him what we were doing. He goes, yeah, I heard a lot about you guys up there. He goes, I'll go down there. And, he told us to get the car ready, flaked and everything. When he comes down, he'll put the color. Because each one of these stripes are taped one by one.
Right.
And he would put a color there, he'd stand there and stare at it for a while, and he'd go back in there and do it again. I mean, he's a short guy too. We had a 5-gallon bucket for him so he could stand on it, so he could sit there, and he would stand there, just staring at it. Then he'd go put another line. And then I'd take a picture of that, and he goes, because we would go back and forth from one side to the other, because whatever we did on one panel, we had to run to the other side and do the other, so it looks even in uniform. And he's very good in detail. I mean, if you saw the car in person, you could see the different ways he painted the shadows, so it looks like things are woven, the lines are woven into each other. I mean, it was amazing.
And he did all that in a week?
He did it in a week. All he painted was the color. It takes a long time to get the body work done. Yeah. Manuel's uncle is a body man. Old school body man, no Bondo. That guy's, if he had a dent and it was a bad enough dent, he'd cut that whole panel out and get a piece of sheet metal and bang it to fit and shape it the way it's supposed to be up there. And instead of Bondo, he'd use lead. He'd lead all the cracks and all the seams so you can't see them. And he got it, straight as you can think of. And then Manuel painted it, and I lost all my fingerprints sanding it.
Yeah. So I remember you telling me that this car actually got in an accident too?
Yeah, well, right before, one of the things, Bugs also was a promoter of car shows down in L.A. and he wanted that car over there badly because he was impressed that he was able to do what he did. He had painted something similar before for another car club down in LA, but when he came up here, we told him, Manuel told him what colors that he wanted. He wanted something in the reds and stuff like that. But the entire pattern was all bugs. And we just watched him and said, oh, I just thought it was amazing because it's all flat. But he would paint a line and paint another line and another on top of that. And with the tiny little airbrush, make it look like it was lifting. I mean, because it looked 3D.
Yeah.
And it was 3D and shadowed, like it was intertwined with each other. It was pretty cool the way he did that. He had a knack for seeing that kind of stuff in his head. So he wanted us to go down there. So on the way down, right before that, there was a car show in Fresno. Back then, I don't know, I haven't been around the car show scene in a while, but back then, if you had a car, some car shows you couldn't get in. You were invited by the promoter. The promoter would invite you to those car clubs to have center stage, so to speak, and you were put out over there. Sometimes they pay your travel, which we did a couple of shows that they paid our, whatever it cost us to get there. Like we took that, I hauled it on my truck, and we used to take it on a trailer. And so we had to rent a trailer, so they would pay for stuff like that. Bugs told us to whatever it costs to get it over there, tell me and we'll get it over there. So, but the week before we went to a car show, just a picnic type car show with a bunch of car clubs in Fresno. And while we were there, some guy ran into the quarter panel, and it was the driver's side quarter panel. And it was a dent, probably about 2 feet long, and pushed in, but it cracked the paint and stuff. It was, So we told Bugs, we may not make it to the show. He goes, bullshit. Fix it, paint it, and get down here. And so
who did the repair then?
Manuel did the repairs himself. Well, his uncle took the dent out and straightened it out, and Manuel flaked it, so that whole quarter panel was flaked already, ready for the color, because Manuel didn't do the color. And we took it to LA, and he goes, I got a shop down there, and he told us where to go. It's over by the zoo and stuff. So we went there, and we went a week early so he can play with it. We went there, and he was so busy working on other people's cars, he never touched this car. Oh, wow. And I go, hey, man, we came down here. You're supposed to do this. Got to dry. We got to sand it. We got to buff it. And he goes, go do this, go do that. And he gave me the keys to his car. He goes, here, take my brother, and go deliver these flyers for the car show that we were coming up. He was trying to get me out of the way. Man, he was just standing there. He wouldn't say anything. I go, we need this car painted. And he goes, go do me a favor. Go do that. And so I drove off, and I came back. When I came back to the shop, Manny was painting somebody else's car. One of his jobs. I go, what are you doing? You got to paint this car. So that night, I was mad at Manny. I go, dude, let's do it ourselves. So he went out there. We started measuring, and we put tape down and painted that color. We did is just match the other color. We looked at what that is and ran to the other side and did it. He ended up painting it himself, fixing that quarter panel. So, we just had to match this, whatever was right here, we just replicated it on the back. And you couldn't tell.
Wow.
We made it to the show, and Manuel's car was towards the center of the room that we were in, and as you walk into the door, there was another 76, but it was painted in greens and blues, painted by Bugs, which was his first one that he did before he did Manuel's. And there were the two competitions, the two leads. They were almost identical, except for the other car had murals on it, on the hood and stuff, and it was in greens and blues. And Manuel won first place. He won first place for best paint. Beat that LA guy. He won best upholstery and best all around in his class.
Wow. And it kept winning for a while, right?
It won for a while. Yeah, we went all over California, Arizona. We went, and one time we went to Las Vegas, and it won out all the shows that it won. I mean, you walk into his room, like at the living room, when you walk through the front door, the whole room was all trophies. Trophies and plaques. I
bet. I believe it, yeah.
This one right here, he had a trophy. It was 5 foot tall.
Yeah. So this car eventually, I think it got burned, right?
He sold it to one of the other members, and the guy was trying to hop it. The car was never built to hop. And it's lifted, but it wasn't a hopping car. It was just lifted to get different profiles. But the guy who got it was bouncing it back and tilted the batteries, and it caught on fire and burned the whole garage.
Oh man! So that was it for it, huh?
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, it's a beautiful car, man. Just every time that you think a new style, that this is kind of what pops into my head.
Everybody, it's exactly what you just said. If you name new style pops up. Technicolor is the next word.
Yeah.
The upholstery was done by Rogelio's here in San Jose. His shop was across the street from my shop right there on Market. Mm-hmm. Now it's the Metro newspaper. So
you said Andy Douglas, was a member or one of the original members, and everyone knows Andy for his hydraulics.
Right.
And you were telling me that you were also involved in the shop at one point, in Andy's shop.
Well, in the very beginning, we built a shop. We had a shop. It was called New Style.
Okay. New
Style Body Shop. And it was just all the members. We'd go hang out, build our own cars and stuff like that. Kinda. Yeah, kind of clubhouse. And then eventually Andy turned it into a business. He changed the name. In fact, he left the building to us, and we didn't want it. And he went and started his own body shop. He had a body shop, and he wasn't really a body man or a painter. He knew how to do it. He taught himself how to do it. His father used to paint, and he learned from him. But he was more a mechanical type of guy. Mm-hmm. He got real hooked into doing the hydraulics and all that kind of stuff like that. So he opened up, after he left the body work type thing, he opened up Andy's Hydraulics. Mm-hmm. And that's all they did was hydraulics at the time. And eventually he sold tires and wheels and everything you can think of for building a car.
Yeah.
But he pulled out of he was the president for the club for about a year, I think. He didn't stay very long.
Okay.
Because he got hooked on his business. He wanted that business. So he got into the business and he left. And then we had already got Manuel into the club, Manuel's brother Rick, and Rick took over as president.
Okay.
And he was president for another year. And Rick is one of the guys. He wants to hang out with the guys and party and do all that. Yeah. It takes a different kind of person to be a leader. Yeah. Not that he's not a leader, but he wanted to be one of the guys, and didn't want people to, yes sir me and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So he turned it up. He said he's going to leave, and Manuel took it.
Okay.
Manuel's a family man. He wasn't one of the guys he wouldn't party with us that often. Mm-hmm. He would sometimes, but he fit the position. So. He was the longest running president that we had during the time that I was there. He was about 5 years when he quit. And I quit, I think, a year after that.
What year was that?
That was like 85, 86.
Okay.
I was in the military too. And so one of the reasons why I had to quit was I got shipped out.
Yeah. I bet that was probably similar for a lot of folks too.
Yeah. We had a couple of guys in the military who had to leave.
So Andy opens up a hydraulic shop, but had you ever seen hydraulics before? When you guys were in high school and all that?
Never.
It was only down.
Never.
So there was no supplier up here then?
There was no supplier. I never even heard of them until we went down there. When we went down there, we saw the car sitting on the ground and wondered, why is that? Sometimes when they parked, like the car club, one of the clubs we used to follow along was Imperials. It was one of the first ones we met. And we originally went looking for the Gypsy Rose because everybody saw it on TV.
Right.
So that's when lowriding started getting popular up in Northern California. When they saw that car, they saw the Gypsy Rose on it, and everybody was going to LA to go look for it. And we were told where to go and how to find it and where his parking lot was. Mm-hmm. And we saw it sitting on the ground. He was there. His brother had a car, a 69 Chevy, was called King Orchid. Mm-hmm. But his car was sitting down on the ground like this, and the back end was up.
Okay.
And we were saying, how do you guys do that? And he walked up to the car, started hitting buttons. I go, oh, we almost fainted. We never seen hydraulics until we saw that. And then we started seeing people running down the street, scraping and jumping up and down and everything you could think of. It wasn't as wild as hydraulics are today. I mean, they're four-point positioning now, where they can rock and do all kinds of crazy stuff. But Andy and his brother Ralph took hydraulics to the next level when they were the first to actually stand the car on its back bumper, which is that photo I sent you with the 66 Chevy, or 65, I think it was.
Pumped, right?
Yeah.
It's called Pumped.
Yeah, that was Ralph's car, Andy's younger brother's car.
Okay.
And you see him holding his switch, and I'm standing towards the front, going to pull the tire down because the car already locked back.
Yeah.
Manuel Garcia is to his back is to you.
Okay.
You see,
was that in San Jose that happened?
The first time that happened was at the fairgrounds.
Okay.
The first time actually it happened was in Andy's backyard, but when that picture that you saw was at the fairgrounds.
Okay. Yeah, there's old footage of that car hopping in like on the street, like in a little cul-de-sac.
That's Andy's house.
That's his house?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, his parents' house.
Yeah.
They had the house was right here and the garage was on the side. He cut out the back door. You know, you go into the garage. He cut out the back door and made another garage door so you could drive all the way, because they had a pretty big backyard. Because it was a cul-de-sac, it had a good-sized yard. And they made a big platform there, and we used to test the car right there.
It's in the backyard.
Yeah.
In the neighborhood, man.
And then right after that, everybody said, oh, yeah, but you can't flip it over. So we had a backup car, a 63 Chevy, and pulled that up to the front and flipped it over on its back. Same place, same area.
At the same time, too? The same event?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they didn't believe it, you know, because we used to get that. We used to always leave them wanting more, you know, show a little bit, show a little bit. And in fact, we did the same thing in L.A., because right after that show, Bugs was having a show in Santa Ana. We drove down there, and we took the 66 over there. We couldn't take the 63 because it was already smashed up.
Right.
And so you can't drive that car because they built a special axle in the back. So when it starts to hop, it pivots on that axle. Mm-hmm. And it would only go so high because physics only let it go so high. But Ralph figured out how to pull the axle in. He had two sets of buttons. So when it's like a teeter-totter, right? When it goes up, the axle is not far front enough for it to go any further. So he hit a button, and it pulls the axle in, and it lets the car go all the way back.
Wait, like closer to the bumper. Then, right?
The entire axle will actually move on the bottom of the car and let it go all the way over. So you get
more leverage.
The leverage of it was able to pivot more.
That's
Otherwise,
crazy.
it couldn't get up any higher.
Yeah.
It just sit there. So he figured out a way to pull it forward. He had a button that actually pulls it was on a rail, and he pulls the thing over, and it rocks over it, and it stops on the back bumper only because the length of the car, you know, and the trunk was too long for it to go all the way over. Like in the 63, it had a short trunk, so it could go all the way over.
Okay.
So when we took that car down to LA, we couldn't drive it on because of the way it's on that axle. Mm-hmm. So we had to rent a truck. We put it up in the truck and drove it down there. And we drove it down there, and right where the car show is, right next to it, was like a freight place where people, trains drop off their freight. Mm-hmm. So we backed the truck up to that, drove the thing off down like that, pulled it, and went to the car show. And when we got into the car show, we sat it there, and we put ropes all around the car so nobody could get near it or touch it. Mm-hmm. And all through the whole day, we had new style members standing, so we didn't want anybody going inside there. We didn't even want anybody to know the secrets that were going on. But you would see every car builder that was out there laying on the floor with a piece of paper, drawing, looking up there, trying to draw what's going on, trying to figure out what's going on. You could see that, but they never knew about the axle or any of the lead springs that were taken out and special springs built to put in there. So they were on the floor. I was watching them go, what the heck? And they would ask us questions, and we were told not to answer any questions. Yeah. They can look, they can't touch, and they can't go past the rope. and so we did that.
That's crazy.
And then when the car was parked over here, there was a main stage over here. It was a big hall. I don't remember what it was, but it looked like where they played basketball. It was huge. It was a big hall. Mm-hmm. So we pushed the car, because when you're inside of a building, you can't start them for fumes and all that. Okay. So we pushed the car to the front to where the stage was. Bugs was on the top on the microphone talking and stuff like that. And we were all, I took my position. I'm always on the front end of the car watching the front end. And Manuel's on the side with the stick because he's measuring. That was his position. And the car started rocking. And we just did it without changing the axle.
Right.
And we told Bugs the script because we did this before in other shows, and we were doing it, and the car would go up, and it was the highest anybody have ever seen before the axle changed, and they go, "Whoa, you can't do that," because the stick is, I think it was like a 5-foot stick, and it would reach the top of the stick, and if it goes all the way over, man, it's past. You don't need no stick.
Yeah.
So we told Bugs the thing. So he was like narrating,
hyping you guys up.
Yeah, he was pumping us all up. Okay, you guys ready? Here it goes. He goes, how would you like it to sit on the back bumper? And everybody going, no, you can't do that. And they're yelling and stuff. And so he started going, and he started going a little bit, and he pulled the bumper just enough so it goes just a little bit higher, and then he let it fall back down. He goes, you can't do it. And people are yelling. And he goes, okay, everybody stand back. He's pushing it. He's pumping everybody all up. And he goes, okay, everybody count. And he started counting. It just stood there like that. That crowd started going nuts.
Jeez.
They ran down, because they had bleachers inside there, and they were running down the bleachers. They picked up Ralph. We're walking around the building like that. And so we brought the car back down, and we started to push it, and somebody started yelling. He goes, you guys did that because you ain't got no engine and it's too light. They never noticed that the axle moved.
Right.
But they said, you were able to do that because you got all kinds of bricks in the trunk and no engine in the front. And so we popped open the trunk and let him look in there. Nothing but batteries.
Pumps and stuff.
And then he goes, you guys don't have no engine. We opened up the hood. There's an engine in there. Yeah. He goes, I bet you don't even run. I go, Ralph, get in the car. He starts it up and he drives out.
Oh, man.
They freaked out. It was one of the best shows I ever had experience at.
Wow. And is that where they took that photo? Was that in L.A. or was that San Jose?
Oh, no, that one right there, the photo that I sent you, that was at the San Jose Fairgrounds.
Okay.
But the one in Santa Ana, it came out in a magazine, the Lowrider magazine.
Okay.
Because they were there and they documented it.
Yeah. Wow, man, that is crazy. Yeah, it's interesting how New Style was a leader in so many things, right? From paint jobs to hydraulics and being able to first ones to get a car up that high, to flip a car over, to kind of bring that style up to San Jose, and it really changed. Yeah. It changed the whole landscape of car culture up here.
Yeah, and that year was one of the best years of Technicolor because it won so many awards. Mm-hmm. We went down there. I mean, he beat some of the best car builders in LA and won a little bit of respect for Northern California lowriding. I mean, because right after the Hop, because the Hop was before this, people started coming to San Jose. They wanted to know what we were doing up here. Yeah. And we were having car shows ourselves. We were throwing car shows. Well, the first one we did was at Hallier Park out in the parking lot. Then we were using the fairgrounds to have car shows. Mm-hmm. And car clubs from LA, even some of the Imperials came up, and Spirit came up, Lifestyle came up. Joe Ray, the guy who's now leading Lowrider Magazine, he was here. And they came to see what was going on because they heard about that car, and then they heard about Technicolor, and so they were kind of coming up when we were going down there, we were exchanging and stuff. Yeah. So they built up a little friendship there. Yeah,
I'd seen a photo of a big 2-story trailer with all these lowriders I think it was Lifestyle pulling up to the fairgrounds. Yeah, I think it was like '78 was the first big lowrider show at the fairgrounds.
Right,
the National Lowrider Show.
Yeah, that I remember that. Some of them even stayed here. That was a 4-day party. They were also amazed about up here. We had car clubs, and some of the car clubs started from New Style because we had members that we had. I think the most we had at one time was 54, and once you start getting big like that, you can't please everybody, and we had strict rules. New Style wanted to have a specific look of their car, and that was our presentation. It's like wine. There's 1,000 bottles of wine. They're all Cabernet Sauvignon, but they all have a different profile. Yeah. So some of those guys broke off and started their own car clubs. New Wave was one of them. Low Conspiracy was another. Their presidents were members of New Style. And to me, that's a good thing because now we got a bunch of different styles that we can look at. One style is boring. We need a bunch of it. Right. So I think it blossomed and it made more creativity come out. Mm-hmm. So that was a good thing. Even better we never had any rivalries against it, other than going to the show we want to win, you know, but there was no animosity towards one another. We were all friends still. We all had barbecues together. We even had baseball tournaments sponsored by Pal Stadium. We used to have it at Pal Stadium.
Yeah.
And when LA came to our car shows and we took them around to show them these kinds of things, they freaked out. He goes, they don't do that down there. You stay in your neighborhood, you stay in your neighborhood.
Right.
How we were able to get along and not fight or have these arguments. Yeah, and they thought that was amazing that we were able to keep that rapport. So another point for Northern California lowriders.
You remember that car, the Blue Mule?
Yeah, that was, he was our 4th president. Hank, a good friend of mine, he passed away. The Blue Mule was a Lincoln Continental. In fact, when he died, the color that he had it painted, his casket was painted identical.
Oh, okay.
And at the funeral, I had a limousine company at the time, so we chauffeured the whole wedding. But his car was set right next to his limousine, next to his coffin, and it was lowered there at the time. He was the president. His name was Al Cepeda. And he was president. It was Andy, Rick, Manuel. I think he took over after Manuel, so he was 4th president.
Okay. Lincolns were pretty popular for New Style. Oh, you said you had about 6 of them.
It happened back then when our car club was going on. There was a car club called Lincoln Conspiracy. And there was a couple of guys in Lincoln Conspiracy who liked our style of building cars. So they left the club and they came to our side and took off their, because they used to use white tires and everything. They went to the skinny tires and into the low riding that we're talking about. And actually, the Lincoln's a very popular car. Your father-in-law has one.
Right.
So, I mean, to this day, it's one of the popular lowrider cars in Northern California. You don't see too much of them in LA. LA's Chevy. Chevy's number 1 down there.
Yeah. So you guys were lifting Lincolns over here and doing split bumpers. And,
Well, I was one of the first that did split bumper in Northern California. I had a 72 Riviera.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I saw one was in the Imperials. They had one in the Imperials. The guy had a 72 Riviera. He had his trunk split down the middle, so it opens up like a book. And he had a chandelier hanging from that and stuff. And he had, and again, I'm doing my pictures, the detailed pictures, and I went to the front, and I go, how come this thing looks like a shark? Because if you've seen the front end of a 72 Riviera, it comes out into a point, but it has a big, ugly, nasty bumper with 2 big old bumper things in the
Bumper
front.
guards, yeah.
It looks like a snowplow. So my car had that, and I saw his car, and I go, that's sharp. And plus, he had twisted grill. He took out the original grill because the original grill looked like an egg carton, what they call an egg carton grill.
Right.
And so he had the twisted grill. And when I came home, I cut my bumper, welded it all up, took it and had it plated. And I put that on there. And there was a few people like Low Conspiracy, the president, he liked my car. So he went and bought one and he built one just like it, but he painted his green. And a lot of people were buying Rivieras because they saw that one first. And I saw it down first in LA.
Right.
And I cut the bumper, and then everybody started cutting their bumpers. And the Lincoln started doing, because they had a pretty big, nasty bumper too. Yeah. So it was one way to make it clean, and it's a customization.
Custom at the same time. So is that the Acapulco Gold?
Yeah.
Rivi?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that car, originally I bought it, I think I was 18, 19. It was my second car. My first car was a 65 Riviera, which was painted candy apple purple with white tuck and roll upholstery and a white half vinyl. And after I saw that one down in LA, I sold that one and went and bought the 72.
Okay.
It was blue originally, and I painted it black because I wanted a black car. And that's when I cut the bumpers, lifted it, put wheels all the way around it. For a while, it was called a black bitch, and I always drove around like that. I go, where's my bitch? So I drove that around for a while like that. And then one day, Manny says, hey, let's paint it. I goes, I'll paint it for you. And he goes, what do you want to do? And I go, I saw a car in LA painted candy gold, but it had purple and red and purple ribbons all over it. But I didn't want the ribbon stuff, because to me that was the way the high riders, we used to call the people on First Street. That's what they used to use, ribbons and flames.
Okay.
And so I didn't want that. We had a different style going. So I took a little bit of liberty by using King Orchid, the way King Orchid was painted. King Orchid had, like Gypsy Rose, had flowers, and instead of ribbons, there were vines and stuff going all over the car. So I go, I want the candy apple gold, and the whole top was painted with marijuana leaves, and instead of pinstripes, it was marijuana leaf, real thin, not big and gaudy, but it was real small down the side and a shape. And on the hood, I had a picture of a mural of Pancho Villa with the cross belts and all that, and I called it Acapulco Gold.
So who did all the like pinstriping work and the leaf work?
Manuel painted the car for me, and there was a guy that we knew who used to make signs. Manuel had a guy make a sign for him when we had Technicolor. When we put it on display, it shows those big signs, real fancy. And I asked him, "Hey, can you paint a mural?" And he was painting T-shirts too at the car show. He was had an airbrush making T-shirts with whatever you wanted. And I go, "Can you do that on a car?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I go, okay. So I brought him to my house. We did it right there in the front yard.
Wow.
And he painted it and painted all the stripes and painted all the marijuana leaves.
Man. So what was the half vinyl thing? Was that a San Jose thing? Was that a Northern California?
Actually, that's Northern California because everybody had full, when you buy a car, they had a full vinyl. We went half vinyl. I don't know why. Even paint jobs were done that way. If it wasn't a vinyl, a paint would have been done that way. And then back then, I think one of the guys in our club who had a T-Bird, he was one of the first that did a half vinyl in our club. His name was Mondo Martinez. He had a Thunderbird, a 64, 65 Thunderbird. He put T-tops on it, and it had a vinyl. So he cut the vinyl back so he could have the T-tops, so it matched. And everybody started, I started seeing half vinyls everywhere.
Right.
It was, I think, a Northern California thing. Because down in LA, I rarely saw a vinyl anywhere. It was all paint.
So what about, since we were so close to San Francisco up here, right? And I know that there's a car club up there that also started in '74. So did San Jose go up to San Francisco a lot?
Originally, everybody was, San Jose, even to this day, is considered lowrider capital of Northern California. But we traveled all over. We went to San Francisco, Sacramento. We had functions that we had out there because we co-sponsored them. They would come to us and they're going to throw a car show or a concert or a ball or whatever you want to call it. They would ask if we would sponsor it because it draws people. If you have a name recognition, it draws people. So if you pool your resources, you have a better result.
Right.
So that's what had happened. And then we teamed up with the guy from LA, Rick Ward from XPRX. He was a famous DJ back then.
Yeah.
And he was taking his band. He had Rosie and the Originals, Junior Walker, Brenton Wood, a whole bunch of those old school bands that were back then. And he put together a show, and he was going to tour it all around the California, Arizona, Nevada, and he asked us to sponsor it because people who were listening to that music were lowriders. So he asked us if we partnered with him, and we did.
Yeah.
And we were the sponsor. We were named on all his bulletins and all his pamphlets that went out on the radio station. New Style sponsored it. They'll be there with their cars. So we traveled with them wherever they had they performed here in San Jose. We did all the Northern California stuff. We didn't do the Southern California. Car clubs from Southern California did it with him.
Okay.
But we did all the Northern stuff. We were at Sacramento, San Francisco, Stockton, you name Fresno, you name it.
Yeah.
So we got some recognition from that. It's probably why New Style got their name around, because we did those collaborations with other people. We also did a collaboration with another promoter, 5 Star Productions, Bonnie Reese.
Right.
Yeah, and she used to do the same thing. She would throw a car show to get people to go. She would ask us, "Hey, sponsor us." So that way, they follow you guys.
Yeah. And then she had a lot of great artists come to San Jose too.
Yeah,
like Mary Wells. And Brenton Wood as well.
Yep. We did a couple on our own. We had James Brown. In fact, we did James Brown one at the fairgrounds.
Wow.
We had a war. We did one with war at the fairgrounds as well. Confunction, we had them there because man, you like that band.
Yeah. So what's one of the best memories you have of New Style?
When we were in LA, when we did that hop, I mean, we had no expectations what to expect or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But when they cheered on Ralph, number one, and plus they gave New Style a lot of credit for building that kind of stuff, mm-hmm. and people in LA, the car clubs in LA, saying we got to go up there to see what you guys are doing, built a lot of pride in you. And I mean, all that work was for none, right? You got something out of it.
Right. A lot of recognition.
Yeah. So they that right there said that we earned a little bit of respect from the original lowriders.
Mm-hmm. One question I've always had is on hydraulic setups, the way that Gary installed the cylinders in the back is he would flip the cylinders. You remember doing that? And like you had pumps in the front in the engine compartment rather than in the back?
Well, it depends. The front were upright. The back ones, they flipped them because the way they were made back then. Until they started making Pally Reds, which we ended up calling them because he painted them red. Yeah. And the guy's name was Pally.
Oh, okay. Because he had a big shop down there, right? Like Pally's air suppliers.
Yeah, he built stuff for airplanes and stuff. In fact, the first hydraulics that I had in my car came off the landing gear off an aircraft carrier. We went down to LA and to his shop, and you go look in the back, and he's got airplane parts everywhere. Mm-hmm. He goes, go find what you want, and then bring it in front, and I'll tell you what it costs. So we'd get whatever he had until we finally told him, because the landing gear off of an airplane are pretty bulky, and and the bottoms it's why they had to flip them over in the back, because they wouldn't fit. So, I mean, and then you had to cut out a big hole to get them to go through, especially in the front. Your rocker arms and A-frames things right here there, yeah. We had to cut out a big old hole for that stuff to fit through there.
Okay.
So he partnered with a friend who's a machinist, and we told him what was going on, and a lot of people went over there asking him, hey, make us something. And eventually we went down there one day, and he told us, hey, try these out. And he gave us a couple of pairs for free. And he goes, go home and try them. If you like them, call me, and I'll ship you guys some.
Nice.
And those were like a cup. They were like a cylinder,
right?
Straight. I mean, very little cutouts that you had to make, which kept your car from being compromised and weakened. Mm-hmm. So, and they were very easy to put in.
Yeah.
The only thing we had to change is back then everybody used high pressure hoses, which were good if you're sitting still, but if you want to hop, that's too much pressure for those hoses. They couldn't take it, and the term came out, he blew a hose. The hose literally blew, and oil shooting everywhere. So around the corner from where I live over here by the fairgrounds, there's a machine shop there, and the guy makes custom hoses, and all steel belted, very, very high pressure. He makes them for big, giant trucks, and that's why they're so high pressure. Mm-hmm. So we asked him, because some of those hoses were, 2-3 inches thick. And I go, we can't use that, it's too thick. And he goes, I can make you he goes, tell me what you want. And I opened up my hood and I showed him. And I go, see that leak? I got to get away from that. And I go, so he made some. We put them in there, and everybody started using steel belted. Wow. I'm sure they had that already down south, but it took us a while to get to figure that one out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, that's probably what Ralph had to use, right?
Oh, yeah.
For hopping that hard.
Any car nowadays, if you're going to be doing radical hopping, you got to have very high pressure steel belted hoses. Mm-hmm. The rubber ones that they used to have were not strong enough. The only thing else is the fact that we were back in 74, and it's 2022? The club's still going on strong. It's still well recognized. It's still well respected. In fact, like yourself, people who want to know about New Style or know about lowriding, they have to go talk to New Style, because they were one of the originals that were there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank you for taking some time to talk with me, talk a little bit about the history of New Style and its importance to San Jose. And yeah, man, hopefully we can stay connected. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. It was fun reminiscing with you.